in the middle of all this, you've got the Hobby Lobby decision where the Supreme Court said a corporation can have a religion and can basically impose that religion on their employees, because after all, they're just employees. They're not citizens or anything. It's not like the government should be protecting their rights. They're employees. This is a contract, financial thing. And so they're just serfs. So they have to comply with the religion of the corporation. And so the Satanist church, the Satanic Temple, the Detroit chapter of the Satanic Temple is saying, well, if that's true, our religion, we're a nonprofit corporation too, and our religion says that we should be able to get an abortion without having to hear a lecture about how it might be bad for you. And so we want to do away with these mandatory, you got to read them the list thing laws. And Brian Fisher had some thoughts about that. Brian Fisher, of course, the host of Focal Point Radio Show on AFR Talk, director of issue analysis for government and public policy at the American Family Association, AFA, American Family Association, AFA.net is the website. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Tom, good to be with you.
So, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but I'm curious if, today apparently Shep Smith accused Robin Williams of being a coward, or words to that effect, for committing suicide. I'm curious your thoughts on the suicide of this man.
My only thoughts, I'm just sad. I'm sad for Robin Williams. I'm sad that his life is at a point where he felt like he had to take such a drastic action. I'm sorry for his wife. I'm just sorry for his children. Terrible, terrible things. So I'm just grieving with his family.
Okay, I'm absolutely with you on that. I think that there's, some suicide shaming going on, and I think it comes out of a place of people being afraid of suicide, and there's a whole societal taboo against it. There's certainly a religious taboo against it. And some religions, you don't go to heaven if you commit suicide and those kind of things. But anyhow, let's talk about this other one. You on your radio program recently asserted that while Hobby Lobby, a corporation, should have a First Amendment right to religion, and that the founders of the framers of our Constitution put religion both in the First Amendment and in the Establishment Clause, that there should be no establishment of religion and no religious test, that they did that to protect exclusively Christians, not Jews, not Muslims, not Satanic Temple members, Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, etc. Do I have that right?
Yeah, actually, Joseph Story said that. He was the longest-serving Associate Justice in the United States Supreme Court history. He was appointed by James Madison. He wrote the first definitive history of the Constitution, and Joseph Story said that the object of the First Amendment was to protect religious liberty for the various Christian denominations. It wasn't to deal with anything else. So
right. He said basically that it was to prevent the Presbyterians and the Congregationalists from going to war with each other. And
right.
There is some historical evidence that was a concern. I mean, Jefferson talked about that in his famous "I have declared on the altar of God the unyielding opposition to any kind of oppression of the minds of men," when he was actually talking about priests. He was talking about the church that he was opposed to, that he was declaring unyielding opposition to. And it's interesting that that's the top of the Jefferson Memorial. But Joseph Story wasn't even born when the Declaration of Independence was written. He was 8 years old when the Constitution was written. I get it that he was a long-serving Supreme Court justice, an ardent opponent of slavery, a good guy in a lot of respects. He was making almost 3 times as much by the time he resigned from the Supreme Court as an author than he was as a Supreme Court justice. And so there's a lot of things that he wrote that you can quote from that may or may not be true. I think, that quote, I don't know if he later repudiated it or not, but that quote is just simply wrong. I mean, Jefferson came out bluntly and said that Jefferson, George Washington, I mean, there's no shortage of claims. But beyond that, I mean, in this day and age, to say that the First Amendment only covers Christians, doesn't that make you the same as ISIS?
No, because what it does, Tom, is it reserves religious expression entirely to the states. The First Amendment protects religious liberty for the states. The states can do whatever they want. If a state wants to make Satanism the official religion of their state, they can do that. The First Amendment protects religious liberty and authority.
Brian, I would encourage you very strongly to go back and look at your history of Massachusetts incorporation into the Federation under the Articles of Confederation when Massachusetts first joined the United States, and later when they had the debate over signing the Constitution. Massachusetts had to alter their state constitution because it was the only state that basically provided for theocracy, for things like a tax that went directly to the church. They had to modify that just to get into the United States. I mean, history says that, this assertion you're making is just not factual.
Well, Tom, your history is in error. At the time of the founding, there were 9 of the 13 original states had established churches in their states. The purpose of the First Amendment was to protect the freedom of states to
and
do
all
that.
of them were gone by the time they ratified the Constitution. They had to.
No, you're wrong about that, Tom. The last state establishment wasn't abolished until 1833.
Which state? What religion?
I think it was Connecticut was the last one to abolish their established religion. But 9 of the 13, at the time the Constitution was enacted, 9 of the 13 states had established Christian denominations as the official church of their state.
Okay, let's say you may well be right. This is news to me. So let's say that that's the case. First of all, that kind of blows up the supremacy clause. If the Constitution says our law supersedes state law, well, but we're getting in the weeds here. Again, this is 2014. We have a religiously diverse population of the United States. How can you assert that the Constitution of the United States should protect you as a Christian, and it should not protect somebody who's a Jew or a Muslim?
Well, actually, Tom, the First Amendment prevents the federal government, it prevents Congress from interfering with anything that state governments want to do with regard to the free exercise of religion. So it prohibits Congress from interfering with whatever states wants to do. If states want to establish Islam as the official religion of their state, they can do it, and Congress is not allowed to intervene. That's freedom. That's supremacy, Tom.
Yeah. Somehow I don't think so. The 14th Amendment, I'm sorry? The Privileged Immunity Clause. Yeah. Okay, yeah. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. So, what you are saying may have been true prior to the 1870s when the 14th Amendment was passed, but it's certainly not true now.
Well, you're wrong about that.
Yep.
The wording of the First Amendment to the states in 1876 never got out of Congress. Congress tried to incorporate the Bill of Rights against the states in 1876, didn't do it. First Amendment still means today what it meant then.
Okay. Brian Fisher, host of Focal Point Radio, AFA.net. Thank you, Brian.
All right, Tom, you're welcome. Anytime.
Good talking to you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So, shall we start lobbying one of the states to establish the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monsters, their official church, state religion?